we're going to find out this week. I cannot believe we are here 5 years later, and just the anguish her family went through then and has continued to go through now is just heartbreaking to not really know what happened. And, you know, there's a local podcaster who has really dug into this case and actually got an interview with Missy's husband. Take a look.
Let me put it in this way. Anytime the purpose of the interviews, whether it was me or with my children, or anything media related, in my mind, was to speak to that person. That was the audience. It wasn't anything about anybody else. It wasn't about sensationalism. It wasn't about resolving the public curiosity or concerns. I don't give a damn about any of that. Mm-hmm. It was about speaking to that person. That person, hey, are you watching, you son of a... That's who. Yeah. It's for you. That billboard on 287, it's not for anybody. It's for that son of a that knows something.
Right.
That's who it's for. Oh, let's keep the story out in the public so we can talk about it. Well, bull. There's one or possibly two other people that know something, and that is who we need to talk to. That's who we're talking to. It's not for any other form of inner freaking pain.
And that is the podcast, Think Theo. Theo Acker is the host, and she's joining us this morning to talk more about that interview with Missy Bevers' husband, Brandon. Theo, thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. And first of all, I want to share my condolences in your loss for Jocelyn White. I was a huge fan, and I'm very sorry for your loss.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and everyone who knew her and loved her appreciate that as well. And Brandon Bevers, having dealt with the loss, the tragic and sudden loss of his wife, Missy Bevers, 5 years ago. In talking to him in depth in this interview, how would you describe where he's at emotionally in his grief process?
I think his grief process is delayed because he is in what we call complicated grief. And grief is an adaptive process, but complicated grief is a disruption in that process. So if I had to say in one word where he is, it would be frustration.
Yeah, understandably, right? I do want to highlight what the type of work that you do. This is not a general news podcast or even book. You're the author of My Grief Is Not Like Yours. Why do you think that Brandon responded to you, of all people? Is it because that's the subject matter that you cover specifically and he felt in a safe place, or something else?
I think that, yes. I actually was a little surprised he responded, and I was so pleased that he did. But I don't think anybody has really asked Brandon Bevers how he is doing. I think that they are so caught up. As humans, we tend to focus on the event that caused, we get fixated on the cause of the death when it's traumatic or tragic, especially a murder. But we kind of forget about everybody that's left that has to pick up the pieces.
And what about his and their two children? How are they doing?
They have 3 daughters, and they're doing great. I think one of them is going to a soccer state tournament. I mean, they've got a lot of great things going on. Their dad has delayed his grief so that he can be the father to those 3 girls.
Yeah. What has been taking place in their life over the last 5 years? You know, like I said, Ron and I were both very much in the realm of covering this. I remember going and doing interviews with people who had gone to her boot camp. But as what happens with all stories, the media cycle continues and the families are left to sort of, you know, connect with police on their own or investigate on their own. Is that something that he has been doing or participating in, or was it more just like, let's get back to life?
You know, I'm going to direct you to listen to the interview that's coming out today, the interview that we did, because that's going to answer all of those questions. We have a part 1 and even a part 2 that's going to come out later. And, you know, we got to talk for quite a lengthy period of time. And it seems like he is trying to focus, of course, on his family and his daughters. But at the same time, and I addressed this in my interview, his grief is delayed because they don't have closure.
And what we're looking at here is some of that surveillance video that was captured of this person wandering through the church up to 30 minutes before Missy Bevers arrived there. They thought it might have been a burglary, but nothing was taken. She died of apparent stab wounds. And he's having to see this video, I know, over and over again, but it is a key piece of evidence, the way this person walks, their gait, for example, as they walk. And I know it's an important part of it. Theo, I have to ask you this because this is the culture we live in. There was talk, not just locally, but nationwide, as there often is in these cases. Did he know more than he's letting on? Was he somehow involved? Is there something nefarious here? And having the opportunity to sit down with him one-on-one in this way for such a length of time, A, did he address that issue and how it feels to have to be confronted with that suspicion? And did he try to put it to rest in any way?
He did confront that in our interview, and that is a huge part of his frustration. It's the public opinion, or the armchair detectives, as he would call them. They, that would drive anyone crazy. The whole time he's just trying to make sure his family's safe, especially in those initial months. But I will tell everybody to please watch the interview, because we do address all those things that you just asked, Ron.
Okay, it sounds like you want everybody to go to the interview. I appreciate your time this morning in chatting with us, Theo. I just am sincerely thankful that you were able to give us a couple tidbits here. It is the Think Theo video cast, and they are kicking off their 3rd season. It's available, not available on Think Theo.
It's really remarkable.
I'm like trying to read this. Hold on. Think Theo videocast featuring exclusive content, not available on Think Theo. Anyway, look for Think Theo if you like to check out the episode.
She's had her audio podcast for several years, so
Yeah.
this is a foray into the world of video podcasting with this interview, which is incredibly compelling.